data for any particular business operation and use that particular data to create insights. Usually business analytics is what is driven by business users. Now business users that take that particular data and anticipate trends and outcomes out of that particular data set. And it involves statistical modeling, predictive modeling, building data analytics, but that is all the business cases around data are taken care by business analytics. At the same time, we have data analytics. Data analytics are specifically cleansing of data, transforming of that particular data, storing of that particular data, newer trends and statistical methodologies around data analytics. This is not specific to business analytics only. Governments use it, data scientists use it, scientists generally use it for their own research work as well. So all of those use data analytics to sort of make sense out of data. So that is on data analytics part. So building forth on top of that, one, from an end user perspective or from a business user perspective, once you look at both of these key areas, business intelligence and business analytics, the key difference is that business intelligence looks at your data, current data as of now, and your historical data, and report that particular data, whereas your business analytics looks at your data from a more futuristic outcome perspective, and it involves predictive analytics, statistical methodologies to make sense out of your data and extrapolate that particular data in terms of how it may look if you keep going on same trajectory in future, in upcoming times as well. So that is the key difference between business intelligence and business analytics.
Right, very, very rightly said. And I think it's a good thing that you've touched upon not only on the business analytics side, but also on the data analytics side as well, because that is also really important, not only specifically, I mean, when we talk about the public sector organizations, apart from just the private sector organizations. So the next question that I would like to ask would be that what are the current challenges actually with business analytics and data analytics? And I would like Usman to, if you can please answer that. Usman, we can't see you, by the way.
I'm sorry, I'm back now. Okay, just a moment. Can you see me now?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, yeah.
As fresh as ever, right?
Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome, yeah.
Yeah, so can you please ask the question again? I was having some challenges here.
Yeah, so the question is that what are the current, you were having challenges with, the question is also related to challenges.
No,
so what
no,
are
it's
the
about
challenges
different things.
with business analytics?
Yeah, Assalamu alaikum everyone. First of all, my name is Usman. I'm from Biletica. We are a player in Australia and MENA, working in digital transformation and data analytics. And the most large players in Middle East market and Australia work with us or working with us in different type of projects or using our products in data analytics. Coming back to the question, I think we need to divide it into two types of categories of challenges. And one type of challenges that in business analytics we see even with our customer is human challenges within the organization. And other type of challenges are non-human challenges in the organization. So when coming back to the human challenges, I think we see, first of all, a confusion of switching to the new analytics environment, or because they are used to the traditional data analysis tools and methods. So even if they understand the benefits of automation, we feel that people don't accept change very quickly. So that is one type of challenge that whenever you talk about data analytics and bringing it to the organization, this is one type of human challenge you face. And then other type of challenges, of course, data analytics is a domain which requires new type of skill set in the organization, and training of employees is and is one of the key area where a shortage of skills within organization to understand the business analytics is one of the challenge that we also see. And because employee may not have the knowledge or capability to run in-depth analysis. And they should have a deep knowledge of how to monetize data at every level of the organization. So probably keeping in view this challenge, they should have the embedded analytics at every step of the ERP or whatever the workflows they have for the employees. The other challenge for the human that we see here is translating data to the business perspective, because we know that companies love the term big data, but most of them, they don't know how to do and what to do with it to effectively use it as per their business goals. And the other type of human challenges we feel is environmental challenges. As you see, especially after pandemic, the budgeting will be another issue. So that are the environmental pressures that on an organization that they will feel from the to adopting a new type of technologies and coming back to the analytics, because that only they can switch when they understand the need. And then the non-human challenges are there for the data analytics that we see. For example, one of the things is compliance and data security. And especially you see after this COVID thing, people are working from home, and GDPR and other type of security regulations are there. So they need to legislatively compliant with these type of requirements. So this is a big challenge that organizations are facing. So they are showing the data to the users and switching to the users because they are working from home or they are remote now. So mobility is there. So that is a key challenge that even CIOs are facing everywhere. And we are also talking to our customers to coming back to some of the solutions to these type of things. And then the other type of data, as you know, we have every type of incident and interaction of the organization, their customers, and data is huge everywhere. So the dark data, we call it dark data, which is not the data they have been using or getting the value out of the data. So that is, I think, another challenge that organizations are facing to these days for bringing the data to life and being competitive in the market. And then the data quality is one of the issue. For example, especially with the large volume of data, including streaming and unstructured data. So gaps in data quality have cascading effect, on the analytics. So that these are the probably non-human challenges we see in the industry, but the major challenges are human, because at the end of the day, you're working with human, and any organization who is adapting analytics, they have a big culture shift they need in the organization. So that's, I think, the challenges that human and non-human organizations are facing these days.
Very rightly said, Usman. And obviously, I mean, moving forward, we will talk about how to take care of these challenges as well. But yes, I completely agree. I mean, there are human as well as non-human challenges, and some of them are obviously rectifiable, and some take a lot more time and effort. I mean, in terms of rectifying. So moving forward, next question I would like to ask Noor Saab, that I mean, at this point in time, how bad is the need as such, I mean, of every business to ensure an analytics-driven culture? I'm given the fact that most of the organizations, they are not really data-driven right now. I mean, that what is going to be? I mean, how do you see that we can bring this culture then?
To all of you. Coming back to the question, I would say it's never too late. If I talk about from 1998 till 2014, I would say that all the organizations were getting towards the implementation of ERP, and any ERP, I would say, whether it be SAP, Oracle, or Microsoft. So that was the time when people were just focusing to re-engineer their business processes and then aligning their processes with the world best practiced off-the-shelf solutions that were available in the market. So that was basically the start or the initiation of business or digital transformation process. But what else? The organization, after a period of, let's say, 2 years, 3 years, start realizing that they have not deployed or implemented the ERP very well. Why? Because the top management is not able to get the advantage or the benefit that they have invested in that particular solution. They have spent millions or billions, I would say. but the return they were not getting. Why? Because the information that they want out from that particular box, that is not readily available or on the real-time basis. So, so what happened? Uh, after what I would say, after a year or two, or even more than that, people start realizing that the data that was key within the ERP, whether it be form of the master data or it may be in the form of transactional data, it was not as correct or as accurate. So people started struggling inside the organization. All the departments geared towards improvement in those what you can say data that is available in the ERP, because the output has to be corrected. So whether we use any business analytical tools, which we call business intelligence these days, in the market, Power BI is available, we have BobJ available, we have Oracle tools and Microsoft tools available in the market. So just implementing the best of the breed intelligence solution will not be enough. The most important factor that is required is data integrity, because the data is not correct, not available in proper form. So the first important point would be, in order to culminate or introduce the data centric or data driven organization, is to first correct your data within the ERP or any application that you are running, whether it may be CRM solutions as well, or it may be SRM solutions. So this has to be done on the first step or on the first priority. Then in order to get the business analytic tool up and running, top management commitment is also required, because if the top management is committed, yes, then other people will start following you and they will basically bring about the improvement that you desire. Another thing would be, of course, the business has to come up with the objective of whether they want to promote the analytical driven culture or not. In the start of the year, when the objective is being set by the organization, so the that should be trickled down from the top management to the bottom management, and every member of the organization should have the objective within their objective that has been provided by the organization, so that culture of analytics can be promoted to the down the level. Now, another part that is more important, people don't share the information openly. They try to keep it within their silos. So most of the information would be stored in their Excel sheets. Most of the important information would be stored in their drives, but they are not centrally populated. So the most important thing would be bringing all those data centrally pulled up using any latest business intelligence or business warehouse solutions. So data-driven culture can only be promoted if the proper metrics has been selected. What has to be done throughout the year, because there can be anything. It can be analytics can be from the sales, analytics can be from the supply chain, it can be from the human resource management as well, and it can be from the financial, keeping in view the profitability and the balance sheet numbers. So for that, of course, you need not only to have a proper culture, but you need to have a proper team as well, not within only IT department, but also within the business end users as well. So you need to have a team of data scientists as well if the requirement of data analysis is on to the greater extent, because as Hasib said, data business intelligence just provide the present and a little bit about the future and the trend analysis. But data analytics goes into the in-depth of why that has happened. So in order to find out why that has happened, you need to have proper team like data scientists who can sit down with the business user and try to identify what benefit business will derive. Other than that, of course, in order to introduce the culture, proper POCs have to be developed within the organization. It cannot be just on a click of a button. It will take time. There would be lot of iterative projects. Some of them would be successful, some of them may not be successful. But organization have to realize investment have to be made by the sponsors, and they have to be patient within the organization in order to make a data culture, what you can say, a success. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much for the elaborated answer, Noor Sahab. I think you've touched upon some really good points over here, specifically from the angle that adapting this culture is more of a change management process. I mean, and more of a mindset rather than just a technological adoption. Because I mean, you can obviously there are technologies available in the market which you can simply adapt, and you can obviously try and do as much as possible, as much as a technology can do. But again, I mean, the brains behind the technology actually, and the top management that is going to really work towards this adaptation of the culture, I think that really counts. So this brings me to the next question, which I would like to ask Hijab. So Hijab, I mean, we have seen that there are researches being conducted, and these researchers, they indicate that organizations at times, I mean, make decisions, business decisions on more related to on what we call the gut feel or intuitions. I mean, instead of relying upon data. So, I mean, how can one ensure that the decisions which are being made in the organizations, they are being made based upon the analytics, what we have been talking about, rather than on based upon emotions or gut feels or affiliations or intuitions, or I mean, I can add as many shuns as possible to it, but but whatever, yeah. So how can we ensure that?
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Walaikum assalam.
Firstly, allow me to clarify something. When you're talking about intuitions, when you're talking about gut feelings, allow me to elaborate that you can't draw even that out of thin air, because you're talking about intuitive data. You're talking about intuitive data, which is intrinsic to all of us. All the information, the influx of information that all of us keep receiving all the time is something that all of us store at multiple levels, is something that all of us relate to and draw into when we're making decisions, often known as the gut feeling. Now, coming into how do we use analytics? Well, that depends on the kind of corporate culture that you've developed or the kind of corporate culture you want to develop. If your policies and procedures are based on reliable data, and you've made sure that everyone was a part of it, because a lot of people talk about employee ownership, a lot of people talk about peer engagement. How do you do that? In order to get your peers to contribute, in order to get your employees to become fully engaged, you run through different analytics. You make them a part of different analytics, and that's where you get your internal data from, which removes any ambiguity that may be there or any assumption, because you need to cross-check your assumptions. You need that kind of data to come through. When you're talking about developing corporate cultures and procedures and policies that ensure that you are basing your decision on analytical data, you have to keep in mind that the structures that you bring in support that sort of a view. For example, I'd like to quote my own experience with you. When I was delivering trainings on a random basis, yes, my participants had a great time. We laughed, we joked, we had a lot of fun. We did art therapy, we did this, we did that. And we talked about how to develop communications. We were talking about team building. We were talking about stress management. These are all the areas that I look into. But when I went into a different approach, where I requested the next organization that I was going to take on that, listen, I want to try a different methodology where I want to not just conduct the psychometric analysis, which is also data that you get at the end of the day, but I want to do personality analysis, and I want to do one-on-one sessions with everyone. And it doesn't matter what the number is, from the top management, from the CEO to the board of governors, the executive committee, the whole 9 yards, down to the gentleman who's serving us tea. I want to do one-on-one sessions because that's data for me and that's data for you. Because a lot of times when you're talking about affiliations, I'm going to look at the hiring part of it. A lot of people are hired through affiliations, the who's who list that we all refer to. But a lot of times they're placed in areas which don't really suit them, where they can't be as productive as we would like them to be. When I went through this sort of a process and I collected all this data, we were able to make a few changes within the organization with the consent of the employees that worked wonderfully for both the individual as well as the organization. So you see, data is absolutely the key here. And you can't move around. You cannot be productive. You can't make business savvy decisions. You can't build corporations without having that adequate data. When you're talking about customer feedback, that is data for you. You've received it. What are you going to do with it? If you have a structure that you follow through adequately, then you bring in strategies which support that sort of information that is coming in. Instead of it becoming an overwhelming influx of information, which is just piled up in some cabinet somewhere, you actually bring it to the forefront and use it to your advantage. So your policies and your procedures play a major role. Corporate cultures trickle from the top. We talk about leadership all the time. When your leadership is engaged in such a way that they practice analytics throughout in everything that they're doing, even something known as a feedback process within the organization about the top management, that should come through. That's data right there. The fact that you analyze it through a channel and you see where the truth really lies and what can be constructively do about it is exactly what you need. Your organization will thrive when you start bringing in analytics which are based on employee feedback. These are the people running your show for you. As long as, and they're the ones who are in touch with the customer base more than the top is. The top is usually alienated in some ways. So you have the grassroots feel of it. You have the culture feel of it. You understand things much better.
Thank you very much, Hijab. Again, you've touched upon some really important topics over here, specifically because at the end of the day, it's all about technology, processes, and people, and they
Absolutely.
act together in order to come up with the right answers and with the right combination of analytics that would actually help in decision making. So we talked about, I mean, the difference in terms of what business intelligence and business analytics is, and data analytics, of course. And then we talked about how to actually bring this culture and how to ensure that the decisions are made based upon that culture. So my next question, which I'm going to ask Irfan, that is related to that, how important does it become to closely monitor the impact of the decisions which are arrived through the utilization of these analytics?
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to start with some hard facts. Okay, there are multiple studies that reflect around 50% of the decision taken within the corporate world go wrong, right? So if this amount of decisions are not resulting into the desired impact, there must be something behind this, right? So if you take a decision, then after that, what you do based on certain analytics, certain data, you have taken certain decisions, and now you're going to implement them. You implement them, you communicate them, and then after that, you have to have the feedback, which also has
Irfan, your voice is breaking. Can everybody hear him?
It's stuck.
It's breaking away. I can't hear Usman Saab.
I just thought that maybe it's on my side. Irfan, maybe you can try closing the video and then talking. Maybe the bandwidth is an issue. Irfan, we can't hear you.
May I interrupt? I think we still have max 5 more minutes to conclude.
That's
so
it?
We can go to. Yeah, you have been half an hour almost.
Okay.
So tell me how much time do you need? So I can at least
more
inform the
time
guests.
if you guys need, so that we can inform the next guest accordingly.
Yes.
That's all we need.
Actually, I mean, I still have, I mean, Umair has not participated yet. Irfan still needs to answer. And then after that, a couple of generic questions that would be for the panel.
Let's assume
So
Zina
we need
15
10 more,
minutes.
10 more minutes. 10
10
more
more
minutes.
minutes?
Yeah.
I mean, is Mr. Mujib okay for 10 more minutes?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
I can give leeway to Khalid.
Thank you, Mr.
He's not gonna spare me.
All right, another 10 minutes. Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Thank you.
Guys, I'm back.
All right, okay. Good to have you back. Yes, please. So we were talking about that the need for closely monitoring the decisions which are made based upon analytics.
Okay, you take decisions based on the analytics and you implement them, and then you get the feedback. So based on that feedback, what you have to do is you have to monitor the performance. So this performance monitoring is very much critical for your decisions to take the right shape, and without that, I mean, the situation will be same. You will have half or even more of your decisions taken based upon even good data will fail. So I have, in my experience, I have seen organizations here locally who have that have launched products, and they have rolled back within 6 months or in a year. So this happens when you do not take into account the customer feedback. And if you are taking into account the customer feedback, you are not driving the right analytics based upon the consumer feedback. So this is the fact that you have to monitor the performance, and without that, you will not be able to adjust your course. So decisions have to be followed through.
Okay, so I'm just having my evening tea along with that as well. But thank you very much for enlightening us, Irfan. I think obviously the thing is that when you start making the decisions based upon analytics, number one is obviously there is a right or a wrong decision, and then there is a good or a bad decision at the end of the day. So there, at times, some wrong decisions turn out to be good decisions, and vice versa. It happens, but that is where the role of analytics and the way you monitor, that is where it actually comes into play. That when you're actually monitoring the data or the decisions that you've made based on analytics, what sort of outcomes are there? So that, I mean, you can tailor your desired KPIs or desired analytics or desired measures actually in accordance with that. So thank you very much for that. So Umair, I think in the last panel as well, you were the last participant. So I would like to ask you about if you can, because I mean, we have talked about now the data analytics. I mean, we started with a theme. We talked about what data analytics, what business analytics is, how we can adapt it, how we can monitor it. So now, in terms of the best practices that we can bring into play. So if you can please elaborate on the best practices that organizations can adapt in the area of analytics.
Sure. So I think most importantly, I think I personally, because I've been in this business for a while, and this is basically coming from my experience, giving service to my clients, and of course working with them as partners. So I think the three top adoption techniques that I've sort of seen which have become successful and where the adoption has come out to be very, very successful. The number one, point is, or the adoption criteria, or to make adoption possible or successful, is that, the C-level needs to be the champion of basically, or championing the entire analytics, initiative. It needs to be a top-down approach, instead of somebody from the middle management or the lower management or IT per se just talking about it, because you see the adoption of analytics needs to be aligned with the business objectives and the outcomes of what the senior leadership is trying to achieve adopting technology. Technology is one aspect, but then it has to be backed up by the driving, I would say, the initiatives or the objectives that are going to be achieved out of this. So for sure, number one criteria for increasing adoption is that it needs to be a top-down approach. The senior leadership needs to be very, very clear in what they're trying to achieve out of this. The number two aspect is the technology itself. And I think there was a discussion around this. Maybe it was this panel or maybe the other one, the one before, where we spoke about, or where somebody spoke about the fact that, the technology needs to be, of course, easy to adopt. And the second thing is it needs to be bundled or embedded with the latest trends of AI and machine learning, right? I think Nur Samad Saab maybe spoke about it, I'm not sure, but yeah, I think. So I think the AI and ML needs to be embedded into the BI now, because when you talk about standard BI tools today, they have, yes, they can give you the information which is already lying in the system, and it'll just be an output in a graph, maybe a nice pictorial graph, But when you talk about the real use of BI is when the system is able to give you the what if analysis, right? Is when they're able to give you a decision-making point, right? So I think AI and machine learning is where it's going to be a very, very important aspect of whatever technology one chooses. It needs to have that element. And the third thing I think is what I've seen where a lot of these adoptions have failed is where people go for a big plan and they don't break it down into phases. So what you need to do is that you need to, of course, have a big plan. Any BI initiative has to be across multiple domains of the organization. So, again, if you just have BI in finance and, it has no impact in supply chain or manufacturing or HR, then there's no point for it, right? But you need to choose the right area initially, something which is going to give you a quick win in the organization. The C-level sees the output of it, the user sees the output, they see the value, and then, it's just a rollout then. Because you need to have, you need to pick that area which is going to have the most impact. Where the decision makers are going to see the biggest impact, where they're seeing the ROI in a quick way. So I think personally, I feel these are the three areas where the C-level needs to be the champion of doing this. Or this, when I say C-level, I mean not just the CEO, but all the department heads, and everybody needs to, the top management needs to own this. The second is the technology that you pick up, which has to have all these new tools of AI and machine learning. And the third is you make a plan and then you break it down into phases with a quick win, and then you just roll it out into other areas. So yeah, for me, these three are the top criteria for adoption, or increasing the adoption for that matter.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Murmay, for enlightening us with this.
You're welcome.
Zaina, how much time do we have?
How much time do we have? Can we go to the questions? Are you done?
No. I'll just quickly talk about one more important topic, which we could not touch upon actually during the discussion until now.
Okay.
And actually, Umar actually briefly did talk about it, which is the role of the other the other technologies actually, along with through which actually the analytics are being derived.
If you want to talk about this topic, then what I would suggest is you can talk about it, but with regards to questions, we'll just provide the LinkedIn's accounts of yours, so whoever is asking the questions can actually get in touch. So you can go to the discussion and we'll avoid the questions because we have a lot also.
That's fine, yeah. Because this is also important, because when we talk about digital transformation, and then we talk about from digital transformation perspective, which takes care of, which includes, for example, artificial intelligence, which includes ERP, which includes business intelligence,
No
and
worries.
specific solutions, etc. So all these, when we combine, then what we essentially come up with is what we call the intelligent enterprise. And that intelligent enterprise is the intelligent organization, essentially, that is then reliant upon three major factors. Like Umair, we discussed this in our last panel discussion as well in Karachi, that it then relies upon three major areas. One is people, the other one is processes, and the third one is the technology. So when we combine all these three, the crux is that when we combine all these three, this makes the organization more intelligent, more informed, and more, I would say, process-oriented, which helps in making the intelligent decisions based upon the business analytics and the data analytics that come forward. I mean, since most of us are related to this area, specifically the ERP field, to start with, because that acts as the base or the core of from where these analytics will be derived, and then moving forward we come up with the other solutions as well which are required. I mean, I can talk about my organization briefly as well, Abacus Consulting, which not only works on the ERP side, but also does a lot of work on the digital transformation side. Whether it's robotic or process automation, or it's related to API development, etc., or ERP, and then related to the business intelligence solutions along with that, or machine learning solutions. If anybody would like to contribute to this point before we finish, and then obviously we can put the ending remarks.
I think so. I'll just quickly add to it. So just continuing what Khalid was saying, that I think ERP, of course, being the foundation of any system, but I think the world is now moving towards, even if an organization does not have an ERP system, I think the technology is enabling today, especially with the use of IoT and other things, where we are able to pick up data from the machines. For example, if it's a manufacturing concern, or if it's a fleet management company, let's say they don't have an ERP, but they have 1,000 trucks or 500 trucks which are moving the load. I think just getting that data from those logistic, from the fleet, and then of course having a warehouse somewhere where they can put some warehouse management system. I think they can still make a lot of benefit to their operations. They can optimize a lot of their operations. There's a lot of data which is still being gathered, which needs to be, again, translated into meaningful data, and then of course, or information for that matter, and then organizations can still make benefit of that. So I think with the technology, the way it's moving, ERP is it's the foundation, like you said. But even if organizations don't have ERP system, they can still make use of data intelligence or business intelligence or data analytics to optimize their operations.
Right, absolutely, Umar. So I hope this discussion was really fruitful. So we talked about what data analytics and business analytics is, and then we talked about the challenges associated with it. Then we also talked in detail in terms of how to adapt a culture, or how to actually bring it into the organizations, and which was followed by talking about the best practices and also the challenges. So I hope this discussion was really fruitful. I would like to thank all the panel members. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you, Mustafa, and thank you, Mujib Saab, for providing this opportunity. Otherwise, I mean, it had been a long time that we had met actually last. So
that's right.
yeah, absolutely. That's so, but it was a really good experience, and I hope it was really good learning for all the attendees as well. So thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Khalid. Thank you for the whole panel. May I request everyone to just put their LinkedIn on the actual chat page? Okay, so anyone who's got the questions down there, at least they can get in touch with you. Thank you so much for your efforts, and sorry for waiting.
It's okay. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
Have a great
everyone.
day.
Thank you.
Zina, did
Assalamu alaikum.
Mr. Ghulam Jasdani got a chance to introduce himself and say something?
No,
Yes.
he came in.
Thank you very much to all of you. Ghulam Yazdani is here. I am from Biletica, sales director, and I have been working from the last 15 years in the field of sales and marketing. And in 2019, I have joined Biletica, and right now we are working some SaaS-based products. And but yes, we are working from the last 10 years as Biletica in the field of data intelligence, business intelligence, and SaaS